The marble hallway stretches in silence except for the rain. 3:47 in the morning. Summer storm hammering the tall windows of the Beacon Hill mansion, lightning splitting the sky into white and shadow, and Nicholas Vitoli stands frozen outside a door he has not opened in 8 years. His hand trembles against the brass doorknob. Inside that locked room on the 3rd floor, a woman's voice carries softly through the darkness, a voice he barely knows, belonging to a stranger he picked up off the highway 3 hours ago. Her name is Valentina Santos. She is homeless. She works double shifts at a diner on Atlantic Avenue. And right now, she is speaking to his daughter. The clouds are moving very fast, Valentina whispers. Do you see how they race across the sky? Like white horses running home. Sophia. He's Sophia. 7 years old. Born blind. The words tear out of Nicholas before he can stop them, raw and broken in the silent hallway. Sophia, my Sophia can see. Vinny and Franco stand behind him, shoulders rigid, because in 15 years of working for the man who controls Boston's underworld, they have never heard him speak like this. Never heard his voice crack. Never seen his hand shake. 30 seconds ago, it happened. The impossible. Sophia looked directly at Valentina and said, I can see your face. The pretty lady with kind eyes. 17 specialists. 3 countries. Every one of them said the same thing, the optic nerve damage is irreversible. Permanent. There is nothing to be done. But something changed. Nicholas cannot breathe. His eyes are wet. Vinny exchanges a look with Franco, the kind of look that says they are witnessing something that should not exist. What neither man knows, what Nicholas does not know as he stands outside that door listening to his daughter laugh for the first time in months, is that this single moment will paint a target on Valentina Santos that 2 enemies are already circling to strike. Douglas Hale, her violent ex-boyfriend, who sees her as his property and his alone. And Victoria Ashford, the society queen with a smile like a blade, who will transform this miracle into a scandal designed to destroy them both. But that is still hours away. Right now, there is only the rain and the impossible. Before we continue, if this story hits you in a way that matters, drop a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you do not miss what comes next tomorrow. Because what unfolds from this moment will test everything these 2 people believe about love, family, and the cost of second chances. Now, let us go back to the beginning. Let us understand how a homeless waitress and a mafia boss ever collided at all. 3 hours earlier. 3:22 in the morning. Riley's Diner sits on the corner of Hanover and Salem Street, the kind of place where the neon flickers like a dying heartbeat and the floor has not been properly cleaned since the restaurant opened in 1987. Valentina Santos stands behind the counter, counting worn bills and loose coins into a small stack. $34. That is all she has. She places each bill carefully, smoothing them flat against the Formica counter, the overhead lights casting her face in yellow fluorescent glow. Her orthopedic shoes ache from the double shift, 14 hours of carrying plates heavier than her own exhaustion, of smiling at men who did not tip, of wrapping leftover meatloaf in aluminum foil to take home for dinner. $34 to last until her next shift. 3 days away. The diner is empty except for old Tom at the corner booth, asleep with his head against the window, and she envies him that much, the ability to simply rest without calculating how many meals $34 can purchase. She counts it again because the math does not change, and because counting focuses her mind on something other than the hospital bill folded in her jacket pocket. $299,980. That is what her daughter Emma needs. 7 years old, with a heart that beats wrong, with surgery scheduled 14 days from now, and Valentina has found exactly $0 toward that surgery. Her job at Riley's pays minimum wage. The blood bank pays $40 per donation, but she is too anemic now to donate. She has already borrowed against next month's rent. She has already sold the good winter coat. What is left to sell, she does not know. The rain starts without warning, without the courtesy of distant thunder. It simply begins, sheets of water hammering the diner's front windows, the street outside disappearing into a grey wash of storm. The neon signs reflect in the wet glass, blurring pink and blue into a color that does not have a name. Closing up, she says quietly to old Tom, and he grunts without waking. She counts the register. $47 in tips, which means her total is now $81 for the next 3 days. Still not enough for Emma's medication, which costs $217 per month and has been keeping her alive, keeping her heart as stable as a faulty organ can remain. Valentina locks the diner at 3:44 in the morning. The parking lot is half empty, and her car, a 1998 Honda Civic the color of rust, sits under the single streetlight like a tired animal waiting to be put down. She has driven this car for 6 years. She has prayed over it so many times that prayer has become as automatic as breathing. Please let it start. Please let it hold together. Please do not break down because I cannot afford to fix you. Tonight, prayer is not enough. The engine turns over, catches, then makes a sound like something dying slowly. Smoke rises from under the hood, thin at first, then thick enough that she can see it in her headlights. The dashboard lights flicker. The engine dies. She sits in the darkness, both hands on the steering wheel, and for 3 full minutes she simply does not move. She does not cry because her tears have dried up somewhere on a Greyhound bus 3 years ago when she fled Douglas with nothing but Emma and a photograph of her late husband tucked in her bra for safekeeping. The highway stretches in both directions, empty at this hour. The rain pounds the windshield. She turns the key again, nothing but a grinding sound, like bone scraping against bone. This is the sound of her life. Everything breaking at once. She is reaching for her phone, which has 5% battery and no money for a repair bill, when headlights appear through the storm. Not approaching from the highway ahead, but from behind, multiple vehicles moving in formation. Black SUVs, 3 of them, moving with the kind of coordinated precision that suggests money and power. The first SUV pulls up beside her broken car. The window rolls down. Inside, a man sits in the back seat, and the interior light illuminates him for a single second, tall, broad-shouldered, maybe early 40s, dark hair silvered at the temples, wearing an open-collared white shirt that costs more than everything she owns in total. A scar runs from his left eye to his cheekbone, a thin white line that makes his face look like it has been broken and reassembled. "Your car is broken," he says. His voice is deep and solid like an oath. "You are stranded." It is not a question. "I'm fine," Valentina says. She does not open her door. She does not lean toward him. "My car just needs a minute." "No," the man says. "It does not. I watched your engine die. The transmission is finished. You will not drive anywhere in that vehicle." He is correct, and this terrifies her more than the broken car. Men like this, men with black SUVs and scars and the kind of certainty that comes from never being told no, are men who create problems for people like her. Men who take what they want because the world has taught them that they can. "I have a phone," she says. "I can call someone." "You can call me," the man says. "I have mechanics. I have resources. I have a dry place for you to wait while we repair your vehicle." "I don't know you." "No," he agrees. "You do not. But I know a woman in trouble when I see one." "And you are in trouble, Valentina Santos." How he knows her name, she cannot fathom. Her hands go cold. This is how it happens. This is how women disappear. She has read the stories. She knows the warnings. Never get into a car with a stranger. Never trust a man with money. But the rain is falling harder. Her phone has 3% battery. And Emma's medication needs to be picked up from the pharmacy in 6 hours, medication that keeps her daughter alive until that surgery, and Valentina is stranded on a highway in the middle of the night with a car that will not start. "What do you want?" she asks. "Right now," the man says, "I want you to get out of that car and let my men help you." The rain hammers harder. Lightning splits the sky directly above the highway, close enough that the thunder is immediate and deafening. For a single second, the world is nothing but white light. When her vision clears, she sees the man more clearly. His scar. His expensive watch catching the lightning. The way his hand rests on the window frame with the kind of certainty that belongs to someone who has never been refused anything in his life. His name is Nicholas Vitoli. She does not know this yet. She will know it in exactly 42 minutes. But right now, in this moment, with rain pouring and her daughter's life hanging in the balance and nowhere else to go, Valentina Santos makes a choice. She opens the car door. The fluorescent lights flicker like a dying heartbeat at Riley's diner. 3:22 in the morning. The place is empty except for Valentina Santos, who sits in the corner booth with her calculator, smoothing out crumpled dollar bills with fingers that ache from 12 hours of pouring coffee and clearing plates. $1. $5. Another one. The bills are worn soft from handling, some torn at the corners, all of them smelling like the diner itself, burnt coffee and old grease and the thin desperation of people working jobs that do not pay. She counts again. $34. This is what her double shift earned her after taxes. $34. Her orthopedic shoes are splitting at the seams. The left one has a hole near the big toe. Her apron, stained with ketchup and coffee and things she tries not to identify, is draped across the bench beside her. She pulls a photograph from the apron pocket. The image is creased from being folded and unfolded so many times the creases are wearing through the paper itself. It shows a man with Marcus's smile, her Marcus, her husband, dead for years now from a stroke he should not have died from, the kind of stroke that does not happen to men who are only 35 years old, but it happened to him anyway. She touches his face. The photograph is so worn her fingerprints have become part of the image. "I don't know how to do this without you," she whispers. Her voice breaks on the last word. Her phone lights up on the table. The screen shows 4% battery remaining. The text message is from Boston Children's Hospital, and she has already read it 7 times today. Final notice. The words sit there in clinical black letters. Final notice, surgery deposit of $300,000 required by August 14 to secure the surgical date for Emma Santos, age 7. Congenital aortic valve stenosis. Without the surgery, the prognosis is terminal. With the surgery, there is a 73% survival rate. 73%. Those are the odds someone has decided her daughter deserves. August 14th. Today is July 31st. That leaves 14 days. 14 days to find $300,000. Valentina folds the napkin where she has done the math. She has done this math 17 times. The double shift earns $87 before taxes. After taxes, $62. If she works double shifts every single day for 14 days, and if she does not pay rent or utilities or buy food or medication, she will have approximately $868. The number sits in her chest like a stone. $868 against $300,000. The diner's owner, Pete, had let her use the computer in his office an hour ago. She had looked at her GoFundMe page. The one she created 6 months ago when the doctors said Emma needed this surgery. $43,212 raised in 6 months. She had thought then that it was impossible. That people were so kind. That maybe, just maybe, someone else out there understood what it meant to watch your child's skin turn blue when she runs. What it meant to see her slow down during recess. What it meant to lie awake at night listening to her daughter's heart struggle to beat. The donations had slowed in June. By July, they had stopped almost entirely. The internet has a short attention span. Everyone has moved on to the next tragedy, the next child dying of the next disease. Her house in Dorchester is already in foreclosure. The bank has been patient because foreclosure costs money, and she has no money. The credit cards are all maxed. All of them. The Visa at $4,999. The MasterCard at $3,000. The store cards at $600 each. She does not dream about paying them off. She dreams, sometimes, about paying the minimum so they do not call at 3 in the morning with their robot voices asking if she would like to make a payment today. She stands. Her feet hurt. They always hurt. The shoes are orthopedic because her feet have developed problems from standing 8, 10, 12 hours a shift. The orthopedic shoes cost $200. She bought them 2 years ago and they are already breaking apart. When they finally disintegrate, she will have to work in regular shoes and her feet will hurt more and the pain will make her slower, and slower people mean fewer tips, and fewer tips means Emma's surgery gets further away. The logic of poverty is a maze with no exit. She pushes the chair in. She counts the money one more time even though she already knows the answer. $34. She puts it in her apron pocket alongside the photograph of Marcus. At 4:02 in the morning, she is driving her 1998 Honda Civic toward Interstate 93. The engine sputters. It always sputters. The check engine light has been on for 2 months. The mechanic told her it would cost $400 to fix. $400. She has stopped going to that mechanic. The August heat is muggy and suffocating. The sky is heavy, bruised looking, the way it gets before a storm. The radio is playing something about love and she turns it off. She cannot bear to think about love right now. Love is what got her into this situation in the first place. Love for Emma. Love for the daughter she held on the day she was born and knew, with absolute certainty, that she would burn the world down to keep her alive. The first drops of rain hit the windshield at 4:15. By 4:20, the rain is falling like the sky is trying to drown the highway. Lightning cracks the darkness open. The thunder follows immediately, which means the lightning is close, which means she is driving directly into the heart of the storm. She keeps driving anyway because turning around will cost time and time is the only currency she does not have. The engine starts smoking at 4:28. A thin plume at first, barely noticeable. Then thicker. Then acrid. The smell fills the car, hot metal and burning oil and something chemical that makes her cough. She eases onto the shoulder. The car slows. The engine makes a sound like something dying, a grinding metal shriek, and then stops completely. The car dies. She sits in darkness. The rain hammers the roof so hard it sounds like it is trying to break through. The wipers are still moving uselessly, rubber blades scraping across glass, unable to keep up with the deluge. Lightning illuminates the empty highway behind her. 3 seconds pass. 4. 5. The thunder arrives like a physical blow. She grips the steering wheel. She is alone on a highway in the middle of a thunderstorm in a dead car at 4:30 in the morning, and she has no money and her daughter is dying and she does not know what to do. For exactly 2 minutes, she lets herself cry. Not because crying will fix anything, but because she can afford exactly 2 minutes. After that, there is no time for this. After that, there is only forward. She pulls out her phone. 3% battery. She tries to call for roadside assistance, but the call will not connect. The storm is probably interfering with the signal. Or maybe she has already used up her roadside assistance benefit for the year. She cannot remember. She cannot remember anything anymore. The rain continues. She thinks about Emma at home asleep in her small bed, the one with the unicorn sheets that Emma picked out even though they were more expensive than the plain ones. Emma sleeps with her hand over her heart, as if she is protecting it even while unconscious. The medication she needs is in the pharmacy right now, waiting for pickup. Medication that keeps her stable. Medication that costs $85 a month, which means Valentina works at least 2 shifts just to pay for her daughter to stay alive. The headlights appear through the downpour at 4:41. Not 1 set of headlights. 3 sets. 3 black SUVs approaching from behind, their headlights cutting through the rain like blades. They are moving slowly, deliberately, as if the storm means nothing to them. As if they are not affected by the same weather that has stranded her here. The first SUV pulls in front of her car, blocking the highway. The second parks beside her, passenger window aligned with her driver's window. The third stops behind. She is trapped. Valentina's hands go ice cold. This is how it happens. This is how women disappear. She has read the articles. She knows the statistics. Young women stranded on highways. Abducted. Never found. The advice is always the same: do not get into a car with a stranger. Do not trust a man with money. Do not be alone. She is completely alone. The passenger window of the middle SUV rolls down. A man sits in the driver's seat. Even through the rain and darkness she can see him clearly because the interior light is on. He is tall, broad-shouldered, filling the space of the SUV as if the vehicle was built around him. His hair is dark, silvered at the temples. There is a scar running from the outer corner of his left eye down to his cheekbone, a thin, precise line that looks like it was made by something very sharp. He is wearing an expensive coat, the color of charcoal, the kind of fabric that costs more than her monthly rent. His wrist rests on the window frame and there is a gold watch there, catching even the dim light. The watch probably costs more than her car. The whole car. The entire vehicle. He looks at her with the kind of certainty that belongs to men who have never been refused anything in their lives. "Your car is not going anywhere," he says. His voice is deep and solid like an oath. Like a promise made in a language she does not speak. "I have mechanics. I have resources. I have a dry place for you to wait while we repair your vehicle." She does not answer. She cannot answer. Her throat has closed. "I don't know you," she manages. "No," he agrees. "You do not. But I know a woman in trouble when I see one. And you are in trouble, Valentina Santos." Her breath stops. He knows her name. He knows her name and she does not know his, and that knowledge is a knife that cuts through her certainty, through her fear, through everything. How does he know her name? She has never seen this man before. She would remember if she had. A man like this, powerful, dangerous, the kind of man who travels in black SUVs with other men in dark suits, is not someone you forget. "What do you want?" she asks. Her voice is trembling like a candle in the wind. "Right now," the man says, "I want you to get out of that car and let my men help you." The rain hammers harder. Lightning cracks directly above the highway, so close the thunder is instantaneous, a sound so loud it feels like the sky has split open. For a single second the world is nothing but white light, nothing but the electricity of the storm, and when her vision clears she sees him more clearly. The scar. The expensive watch. The way his hand rests on the window frame with the kind of certainty that only comes from a life spent being obeyed. She will learn his name in exactly 42 minutes. But right now, with rain pouring and her daughter's life hanging in the balance and nowhere else to go, Valentina opens the car door. The rain hammers against the window of the tiny studio apartment, each drop hitting the glass like a fist demanding entry. Valentina Santos stands at the sink at 4:17 in the morning, her orthopedic shoes aching from the double shift that ended 3 hours ago, her fingers pruned from washing dishes that other people left behind. The $34 in worn bills sits on the kitchen counter next to an eviction notice dated in red ink. Emma sleeps on the sagging couch behind her, the oxygen concentrator beside her bed humming its mechanical lullaby, a sound Valentina has learned to sleep through the way other mothers sleep through silence. She hears the car cough before she hears it die. The engine turns over once, twice, 3 times, and then surrenders completely. Smoke rises from under the hood like something inside is burning away. Valentina grabs her jacket, the same one she wore last winter, and runs into the downpour. The November wind tears through the empty highway like a blade wrapped in ice. She pops the hood, squinting at an engine she does not understand, rain streaming down her face, soaking through her uniform collar. The car had cost $2,800 5 years ago. It is all she has. Without it, she cannot get to the hospital across the city for Emma's pre-surgery appointment tomorrow. Without it, she cannot drive to 3 different jobs. The headlights appear first. 3 black Escalades, moving in formation, cutting through the rain like sharks sensing blood in the water. Every person in Boston knows what 3 black SUVs in convoy mean. They mean power. They mean people who do not stop at traffic lights or red tape or the law. They mean Nicholas Vitoli. 2 men emerge first. Vinny, stocky with a nose broken so many times it sits crooked on his face, and Franco, tall and thin with eyes the color of a dead sky. Both wear expensive suits getting ruined in the rain, and both have their hands positioned near their waistbands with the casual readiness of men who have used those weapons before. They assess her the way a predator assesses prey, quick, thorough, dismissive. She is nobody to them. A woman in a stained waitress uniform standing alone on a dark highway at 4 in the morning is not a threat. Then he steps out. Nicholas Vitoli moves into the downpour like he owns it. Mid-40s, 6'2", with dark hair going silver at the temples and a scar running from his left eyebrow to his cheekbone like a history of violence written in his own flesh. He wears a coat that must cost more than everything Valentina owns, $5,000 of cashmere now drenched and clinging to his broad shoulders. When his eyes find her standing there shivering beside her broken car, something shifts in his expression. For just a second, the controlled mask cracks. His jaw tightens. His hand stops moving. He looks at her the way someone looks at a ghost. "Your car is dead," he says. His voice is rough, Boston accent heavy as concrete, but not unkind. Valentina cannot speak. Her throat has closed. She nods, managing only, "I know. I'm sorry, I'll move it, I just need to." "Where are you going at 4 in the morning?" He takes a step closer, and the rain falls harder between them. She hesitates. Something about his eyes stops her from lying. They are hollow, exhausted, grieving in a way that matches her own reflection. "Home," she says quietly. "To my daughter. She's with a neighbor, but I promised I'd be back by 5. He studies her face in the lightning flashes, seeing everything, the exhaustion, the fear, the way her hands shake. "Get in the car. We'll take you." "I can't, I don't." That wasn't a request. But his tone is gentle, almost tender. Vinny mutters beside him, low and careful, "Boss, we don't know her." Nicholas ignores him completely, as if Vinny has not spoken at all. He keeps his eyes on Valentina. "My name is Nicholas Vitoli. And I am not going to hurt you or your daughter. I am going to drive you home because your car is broken and you need to get there, and that is what decent people do." The way he says it, the absolute certainty, the absence of anything that sounds like a lie, makes her move. She locks her car and gets into the middle Escalade. The interior smells like leather and gun oil and expensive cologne. Nicholas sits across from her, separated by the dim cabin light, rain streaming down the tinted windows. The engine purrs to life, smooth and powerful. "You have a daughter," he says. Not a question. "Yes." "Emma." "She's 7. Valentina's voice wavers. "She has a heart condition. The surgery is in 2 weeks and she stops herself." Nicholas's jaw tightens again, a subtle clenching that only someone looking directly at him would notice. "I have a daughter too. Sophia. Also 7. The way he says the name, Sophia, it sounds like it costs him something. Like saying it aloud requires an exchange of breath and blood. He looks away, toward the dark streets passing outside the window, and does not speak again until the Escalade pulls up to her building in Dorchester at 4:39 in the morning. The neighborhood reveals itself in the headlights, broken streetlights casting shadows on graffitied walls, bars on every ground floor window, the particular exhaustion of a place where people work too hard for too little. Nicholas steps out of the vehicle, and Vinny and Franco follow automatically, staying close, their hands still near their waistbands. He walks Valentina to her door. Inside, Mrs. Chen sits in the darkness with Emma asleep on the sagging couch, the oxygen concentrator humming beside her, creating the only sound in the small room. When Mrs. Chen sees Nicholas Vitoli standing in her doorway, tall and scarred and radiating the kind of power that makes even neighborhood people know his name, her face goes pale. "I'll go now, Valentina," she says quickly, gathering her cardigan. Nicholas nods at her, dismissive, and moves to the couch. He stands there for a long moment, looking at Emma, small for 7, her skin pale as paper, dark circles under her eyes like someone is slowly draining her, the medical bracelet visible on her thin wrist. His face transforms. The controlled expression dissolves. For a second, he looks like a man drowning. "What's wrong with her?" he asks, his voice rough. Valentina explains, congenital heart defect, valve replacement needed, $300,000 surgery scheduled for 2 weeks from now. She shows him the hospital bills, shows him the collection notices, shows him the final warning letter she received 3 days ago. Nicholas listens without interrupting, without moving. When she finishes, he asks, "Can I see a photo of your husband?" She pulls a worn photograph from her apron pocket. Marcus at their wedding, young and smiling, alive in a way that makes her chest ache. He died 2 years ago. Construction accident. No life insurance. No savings. No family to help. Nicholas holds the photograph carefully, as if it might break. "Come to my house tomorrow. Bring Emma. I want Sophia to meet her." "Why would you help me? I'm nobody." The words escape before she can stop them, small and broken. "Because I understand what it means to watch your child suffer and be powerless." He writes an address on Beacon Hill on the back of an old receipt, hands it to her, and leaves. At 2 p.m. the following afternoon, Valentina and Emma arrive at the mansion. 30 rooms spread across 3 stories, security gates, men in dark suits standing at different corners of the property. Franco escorts them inside. The house is immaculate but cold, feels like a museum where people are not supposed to touch anything or breathe too loudly. Nicholas meets them in the sitting room. Emma is shy, holding her mother's hand tightly, her small frame dwarfed by the expensive furniture. Nicholas kneels to Emma's level, his large frame folding down until his scarred face is level with her own. "Emma, I have a daughter who would like to meet you. Her name is Sophia. She can't see, but she's very kind. Would you like to meet her?" Emma nods slowly, and they walk upstairs to the 3rd floor. Nicholas's hands shake as he unlocks the nursery door. Vinny and Franco exchange a look that lasts 2 seconds, a silent communication. Boss hasn't opened that door in 8 years. Inside is a beautiful room frozen in time. Toys organized precisely on shelves, medical equipment in the corner, and Sophia sitting by the window, her face turned toward the muted light she cannot see. Dark curly hair, unseeing brown eyes, delicate features, an expensive dress. A nurse sits nearby, her presence almost invisible. Nicholas introduces them. Emma, despite her exhaustion, sits with Sophia and starts talking about her favorite cartoon, her small voice filling the silence that has lived in this room for 3 years. Valentina watches Nicholas watch his daughter, sees the raw pain written across his face like a wound that will never fully close. "Her mother died in childbirth," he says quietly to Valentina. "Complications. Sophia was born with damaged optic nerves. 17 specialists. For countries. They said it was irreversible." Valentina's hand moves instinctively to his arm, just touches it for 3 seconds. The contact lasts barely longer than a heartbeat, but Vinny notices from the doorway, mutters to Franco, "In 15 years I've never seen him let anyone touch him." At 6 p.m., Nicholas invites them to dinner. They go to Amice's, an upscale Italian restaurant in the North End, candlelit and quiet, with a private booth in the back that seems to exist only for him. The owner greets him with nervous respect. Servers avoid eye contact. Nicholas orders for everyone, makes sure Emma gets plain pasta she can eat without strain on her compromised heart. During the meal, he asks about Valentina's life, real questions, the kind that require real answers. She tells him about double shifts at the diner, about Marcus, about the $34 in her pocket being everything she has left after expenses, after Emma's medications, after the constant mathematics of survival. Nicholas listens like every word matters. Emma falls asleep against her mother's shoulder halfway through dinner, her breathing deepening into the kind of exhaustion that only sick children know. "She's exhausted all the time now," Valentina whispers. Nicholas's expression hardens with decision. "I'll pay for the surgery. All of it. The full $300,000. Tomorrow." "I can't accept." "You can. You will. This is not charity. This is because Emma deserves to live." "And because?" He pauses, looking back toward the kitchen where Sophia had been speaking with Emma hours before. "I haven't seen Sophia smile in 3 years. Until today. Until Emma." But what neither of them knows is that across the restaurant, in a corner booth, Douglas Hale sits nursing a whiskey, his scarred fists clenched around the glass. Valentina's violent ex-boyfriend, the man she left after he put her in the hospital with bruises she spent months explaining away, the man whose cop friends keep ignoring her restraining order. He watches Nicholas lean closer to Valentina, watches his hand cover hers for a moment. Douglas pulls out his phone, starts making calls, his jaw tight enough to crack. And at a table near the window, Victoria Ashford watches too. Society money, designer clothes, a face that has learned to smile while planning cruelty. She has wanted Nicholas for herself for 10 years, has been refused coldly 100 times, and now she watches him show tenderness to a woman in a stained waitress uniform. She smiles, a predator's smile, and begins planning how to destroy them both. That night at 11 p.m., Douglas pounds on Valentina's apartment door. The sound echoes through the thin walls like thunder. "I know where you were tonight," he shouts. "Who the hell is that guy? You think you can just move on? You're mine." Valentina does not open the door. She grabs Emma, calls 911 with shaking fingers. The cops who arrive are Douglas's friends. They take a report but do nothing, their body language communicating the message clearly: this is not their problem. One cop mutters on the way out, "Maybe don't lead guys on, lady." After they leave, Valentina locks every lock, pushes furniture against the door, and holds Emma while she shakes. Outside, the November rain falls harder, and somewhere in the darkness, 2 men are already making plans, one to possess her, one to destroy her, and neither knows that the Mafia boss is about to step between them. The rain hammers against the fire escape like fists demanding entry. Valentina Santos sits on the wet metal, her soaked uniform clinging to her skin, her fingers trembling as she pulls a pen and crumpled notebook from her pocket. The water streams down her face, mixing with tears she did not know she was still capable of producing. 2 stories below, the parking lot glows under streetlights, empty except for a single black SUV parked with its engine running. It is 2:07 in the morning. Emma sleeps inside the apartment, her breathing still labored, the surgery now just 2 days away. And Valentina is about to disappear. The pen scratches across the wet paper, the words barely legible, running and bleeding as the rain soaks through. "Nicholas, I'm writing you this letter because I love you enough to disappear." She pauses, her hand shaking so violently the words come out jagged. "You gave Emma life. That's everything. But I can't let you lose Sophia because of me. The news, the scandal, I see how they're using me to hurt you." Douglas won't stop. Victoria won't stop. "I'm going to take Emma and leave Boston after her surgery. You'll never see me again. That's the price I pay for her life. Thank you for teaching me that good men still exist. I loved you from the moment you knelt down to talk to Emma like she mattered. V." She folds the letter with numb fingers, addresses the envelope in shaky letters to his mansion on Beacon Hill, and sets it aside. The wind tears at her uniform like a blade wrapped in ice. She stands, gripping the railing with both hands, looking down at the street below. For stories. The asphalt gleams wet and black. How easy it would be. How simple. Just one step. The exhaustion, the fear, the weight of impossible choices, all of it could end in a moment. Her palms are slick against the cold metal. Her vision blurs. Then Emma coughs. It is not a normal cough. It is the wet, rattling sound that has become familiar over the past 3 months, the sound of a 7-year-old's failing heart struggling to push blood through her small body. Valentina's grip tightens on the railing. The cough continues, desperate, choking. She hears her daughter call out in the darkness, "Mama? Mama, where are you?" Valentina climbs back through the window. She finds Emma sitting up in bed, her small frame heaving, her pale hands clutching the blanket. Valentina sits beside her, pulls her into her arms, and feels the frantic beating of that defective heart against her own chest. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." She rocks Emma slowly, humming a song her own mother taught her, a song she thought she had forgotten. Emma's breathing gradually steadies. Within 5 minutes, the girl is asleep again, her head against Valentina's shoulder, her fingers still gripping her mother's sleeve. Valentina does not move for 2 hours. What she did not know, as she sat in that dark room holding her daughter, was that Nicholas Vitoli had spent the last 48 hours uncovering every secret both Douglas Hale and Victoria Ashford had ever buried. He had traced the tabloid leak back to Victoria's hand, had obtained recordings of her paying the hospital administrator $40,000 to access Emma's medical records. He had matched her emails to the journalist line by line. He had discovered Douglas's complete history, 7 assault charges, 2 protection orders, connections to the 14 Boston police officers who had ignored Valentina's calls for help. And he had made phone calls. At 5:56 in the morning, federal prosecutors in Boston received files that made them sit back in their chairs. At 6:38 a.m., an FBI team assembled at their headquarters. At 6:15 a.m., 12 men in black tactical gear stood outside Douglas Hale's apartment building in Dorchester. Nicholas Vitoli was there personally. He had wanted to see this with his own eyes. He had wanted to watch the man's face in the moment he understood that his life had ended. Vinny and Franco flanked him as they entered Douglas's apartment, moving through the darkness like ghosts, their footsteps making no sound against the linoleum floor. The bedroom door was locked. Vinny used a key they had obtained from the landlord. The door swung open. Douglas Hale woke to find a shadow standing over his bed. Then another shadow. Then another. His eyes opened, struggling to focus in the darkness. And then the lights came on. Nicholas Vitoli stood at the foot of the bed, his dark eyes colder than the November night. He wore a charcoal cashmere coat that cost more than Douglas Hale made in a year. His voice, when he spoke, was like thunder rolling across empty water. "You put your hands on Valentina Santos 3 years ago. You broke her arm. You put her in the hospital with injuries she spent weeks explaining away as accidents. You stalked her. You threatened her. You violated every protection order the Commonwealth issued against you." Douglas scrambled backward against the headboard, his bare chest heaving, his scarred hands raised as if to ward off a blow. "I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't done anything. The 14 police officers who ignored her 911 calls." Nicholas's voice dropped lower. "I bought them. Every single one. They're going to testify against you. I have recordings of every call Valentina made that they refused to log. Every report they dismissed. All of it documented, filed, and ready for a federal prosecutor." Vinny stepped forward and dropped a folder on the bed. It landed with a sound like a hammer striking wood. The folder split open, papers scattering across the stained sheets. Douglas picked one up with shaking hands. An arrest warrant. Federal charges. Assault. Stalking. Witness intimidation. Corruption charges against the police department. 40 years, Nicholas said quietly. Federal prison. And I made certain arrangements with people inside. You're going to spend every single day looking over your shoulder, wondering when it will happen, knowing that at any moment, the man beside you in the cafeteria might be someone who answers to me. You're going to live with what you did. That is mercy. Douglas Hale collapsed as if his bones had turned to water. He wept, great heaving sobs, his body convulsing. He begged. He promised. He offered things, money, information, anything. Nicholas did not listen. He turned and walked out of the apartment as FBI agents in blue jackets were coming through the front door. Douglas Hale was arrested at 6:33 in the morning on the front steps of his apartment building, captured by news cameras already gathered at the scene. By 6:45 a.m., his face was on television. By noon, he was arraigned, bail denied, the judge citing the severity of the charges and the pattern of violations against a protected person. But while Douglas Hale was being led from the courthouse, something far more devastating was unfolding across the city. Victoria Ashford woke to her phone ringing. It was her lawyer, his voice tight with something close to panic. "Turn on Channel 7. Right now." She did. And watched as her entire life collapsed on live television. At 9:53 a.m., Nicholas's legal team had called a press conference. The room was packed with journalists. Camera flashes erupted like lightning when the first document was displayed on the screens behind the podium. An email from Victoria to a tabloid journalist, in Victoria's own words, bragging about how to shape the narrative of the story. A recording played next. Victoria's voice, crystal clear, offering the hospital administrator $40,000 to access Emma's medical records. "I don't care how you get them. I just need proof that the girl is sick. Dying, ideally. It'll make the story so much better." Then another recording. Victoria on the phone with her publicist, laughing, "The waitress doesn't even know she's already ruined. By tomorrow, she'll be a national punchline. And Nicholas will watch everything he touches turn to ash." The press conference lasted 17 minutes. By minute 5, Victoria's face had gone from elegant composure to frozen shock to absolute destruction. By minute 12, her lawyer had arrived and was whispering frantically in her ear. By minute 17, federal investigators were announcing charges: bribery of a hospital employee, violations of the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, conspiracy, fraud. By 10:08 a.m., Victoria Ashford was arrested at her penthouse apartment, led away in handcuffs while her doorman stared in disbelief. By 11:24 a.m., her face was on every news channel, not as the elegant society figure in designer clothes but as a criminal, her hair disheveled, her expression shattered. By 1:16 p.m., her charity board positions had been revoked. By 3:19 p.m., her society friends were issuing statements. They had no knowledge of her activities, they were shocked and horrified, they were distancing themselves entirely. By 5:06 p.m., her assets were frozen. By 6:41 p.m., bail was set at $2 million. And by 8:11 p.m., the same tabloid that had run her vicious story issued a retraction that read like a public execution: society figure Victoria Ashford arrested in plot to destroy innocent woman and sick child. Nicholas Vitoli had not destroyed them with violence. He had not needed to. He had simply exposed the truth and let the system do what it was designed to do. Two people, dismantled, not by bullets but by their own choices made visible to the world. At 8:33 p.m. that same night, Valentina opened her apartment door to find Nicholas standing in the hallway. He was still wearing the cashmere coat. His dark eyes held something she had never seen before. Exhaustion, yes. But also something else. Something that looked like relief. "It's over," he said. His voice was like gravel. "Douglas is in federal custody. Victoria is being arraigned tomorrow morning. The story they created is gone." Valentina stood frozen in the doorway. She could not speak. The letter she had written still sat on her kitchen table, addressed to his mansion, a goodbye she would never send. "Your daughter can have her surgery," Nicholas said. "No scandal. No cameras. Just a girl getting a second chance at life. That's what you deserve, Valentina. That's what Emma deserves." Tears began to fall down her face, falling, and Nicholas Vitoli, the man who had been taught by the world to show no weakness, pulled her into his arms and held her while she broke, held her like she was something precious, something worth saving, something worth everything he had done. Behind him, Vinny and Franco stood watch in the hallway, and in their eyes was something neither man had expected to see. Not in him. Not ever. Love. Pure, devastating, dangerous love. The morning sun filtered through the mansion windows, pale and uncertain, as if the light itself didn't believe in miracles. Valentina Santos stood in the hallway outside the nursery, her hand trembling against the door frame. The letter remained folded in her pocket, growing heavier with each breath. She had come here to say goodbye. Instead, she had found Nicholas Vitoli waiting at his front door as if he had been standing there for hours, as if he had been waiting for her to arrive before his life could truly begin. "Vinny saw you on the security camera," he had said, his voice steady but his eyes revealing everything his words concealed. She had tried to hand him the letter, had tried to explain that she could not stay, that a woman who had slept in her car just weeks ago had no place in his world, that love was not enough when scandal followed like a shadow. But Nicholas had read the letter right there in his doorway, standing in the Boston afternoon with the wind catching his dark hair, and when he looked up at her, tears had traced a path down his scarred cheek. "You wrote that you loved me from the moment I knelt down to talk to Emma," he said. Not a question. An acknowledgement of something he already knew, something he had felt in his bones the night she had trusted him enough to tell the truth. "Yes," Valentina whispered. "I loved you from the moment you got in my car on the highway and told me the truth even though you were terrified. You didn't lie. Didn't manipulate. Didn't want anything from me. Do you know how rare that is? In my world, every person who approaches me wants something. Power, money, protection, revenge. But you wanted nothing. You were drowning and you didn't ask me to save you. You were only concerned about keeping me safe from the man who was hunting you." He stepped closer, the cashmere coat falling open, revealing the white shirt beneath. "Douglas will never touch you again. Victoria will never hurt you again. And you're not disappearing. Come inside." The words were a command, but his hand was gentle when he reached for her, fingers barely brushing her wrist before letting her lead the way. The mansion smelled like furniture, polish and fresh flowers, like money and warmth. Upstairs, on the third floor, the door to the nursery was open. Sophia sat on a small bed decorated with pale blue blankets, her eyes closed, her small frame looking impossibly delicate in the afternoon light. Beside her sat Emma, Valentina's daughter, healthy and whole after the surgery that had saved her life. The two girls were holding hands, neither one speaking, just existing together in the quiet way children do when they have found someone who understands their loneliness. When Sophia heard footsteps, she turned her head. Her eyes remained closed. "Sophia, there's something we need to try," Nicholas said. He knelt beside his daughter with the same care he had shown Valentina that first night on the highway. "I found another specialist. A researcher in Baltimore who has been studying electromagnetic frequency therapy for optic nerve regeneration. The theory is rare, but the possibility exists. Emma's oxygen concentrator and her surgical recovery equipment emit a specific frequency that might help your eyes begin to heal." Sophia's small hand squeezed Emma's. "Will it hurt?" "No," Valentina said, moving to the other side of the bed. "No pain, sweetheart. Just light." For 3 days, medical equipment had hummed quietly in the mansion's master bedroom, devices brought from the hospital that had saved Emma's life now positioned carefully around Sophia's sleeping space. 3 days of proximity, of electromagnetic frequencies washing over the optic nerves that had been damaged by 7 years of pain and darkness. 3 days of Valentina reading to her, singing to her, letting her daughter play nearby, filling the room with the sounds of healing and hope. On the third evening, as sunset painted the walls orange and gold, Nicholas asked Valentina to sit in front of his daughter once more. The moment had arrived. The 1 in a million chance. "Sophia, it's Valentina," she said, taking the girl's small hands in her own. They were warm, these hands. Alive. Emma's mother. "Can you hear me?" "Yes," Sophia whispered, her voice like a candle flame struggling against wind. "I'm going to be right here. I want you to try something for me. I want you to open your eyes and tell me what you see. It might be blurry. It might be just shapes and light at first. But I need you to try." Nicholas stood behind them, his men stationed in the hallway beyond. Vinny and Franco waited with the stillness of soldiers, because in the Vitoli family, moments like this were sacred. Sophia's face tightened with effort. Her eyelids, which had been sealed shut for so long, began to tremble. The light from the setting sun caught the edge of her lashes. And then, slowly, trembling with the effort of 7 years of blindness, she opened her eyes. For 10 full seconds, nothing happened. Sophia stared straight ahead, unseeing, her eyes wet with tears from the strain. Valentina's heart began to sink. The miracle would not come. Medicine and hope and electromagnetic frequencies were not enough. Some things, once broken, remained broken forever. Then Sophia gasped, a sound so sudden and pure that it shattered the silence like glass. "I see," she whispered. "Shapes. Light. Your face. I can see your face, the pretty lady with kind eyes. I can see colors. Pink and gold and blue." Tears poured down Sophia's cheeks as she stared at Valentina, really stared, her eyes taking in the world for the first time in 7 years. Everything is so bright. So beautiful. Why is everything so beautiful? Nicholas Vitoli, the man who ruled half of Boston through fear and loyalty, who had built an empire on the backs of men who answered to him without question, who had learned years ago that weakness was a death sentence in his world, collapsed to his knees beside his daughter and wept. Not silent tears. Not the controlled expression of a man managing his emotions. But deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere so far down in his chest that it seemed like his body was remembering how to feel after decades of numbness. Vinny and Franco stood frozen in the doorway. In 23 years of service to Nicholas Vitoli, they had never seen him cry. Not once. Not when his wife had died. Not when he had held his newborn daughter for the first time. Not when he had made decisions that sent men to their graves. And certainly not for a woman who had been invisible just 3 weeks ago, a woman who had appeared in his life like an answer to a prayer he had never spoken aloud. But here he was, on his knees, his body shaking, his hands reaching for both his daughter and the woman who had made the impossible possible. Sophia wrapped her arms around his neck, still staring at Valentina with eyes that could now see, could now witness the world in all its terrible and beautiful detail. Emma moved to embrace them both, her small heart strong within her chest, her lungs clear, her future no longer measured in days but in years and decades. Valentina stood there, watching the family she had never known she was meant to save, and thought of the letter that remained in her pocket. The goodbye she would never send. The life she had planned to leave behind. It seemed like a lifetime ago that she had counted $34 in worn bills at 3 in the morning, desperate and drowning. It seemed like a lifetime ago that she had been nobody. The evening deepened around them. Outside, Boston lights began to glow against the darkening sky. Inside the mansion on Beacon Hill, 4 people breathed together in a room filled with the hum of medical equipment and the electricity of transformation. The poor homeless woman had done what 17 specialists could not do. She had brought light back to a child's eyes. She had brought hope back to a man who had forgotten it existed. And in that moment, neither of them knew that this was only the beginning of their story. That 6 months later, they would be standing in this same mansion's garden, a family bound not by blood but by choice, by love, by the courage it took to reach out when reaching out meant risking everything. 6 months later, Sophia could read. Really read. Her vision had continued to improve, colors becoming sharper, faces becoming clearer, the world revealing itself day by day through the windows of her returning sight. Emma played in the garden below, her heart strong, her laugh carrying across the stone pathways like music. Valentina wore a simple ring on her left hand, a promise made not in a grand gesture but in a quiet moment when Nicholas had taken her hand and asked her to stay, not as a guest or a charity case, but as his partner, his wife, his equal in a life rebuilt from tragedy. Sometimes one hand reached out at the right moment can change an entire life, Valentina said to the children, watching Sophia read a story aloud while Emma traced the words with her finger. Nicholas reached out when I was stranded. I reached out to Sophia when everyone said there was no hope. And in saving each other, we all became whole. The family sat together as the sun descended, for people who had no business finding each other, yet here they were, proof that miracles still existed for those brave enough to believe in them. How did this story make you feel? Please leave a comment below and share what is in your heart. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss what is coming tomorrow. Share this with someone who needs to hear it.